Here we go. And if your headphones are too low or too loud, I can adjust them right here. All you got to do is just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Get all my shit set up in that picture.
We get a lot of hard-hearing people in here, so... Me too.
Well, we have some stuff. Is it worse than anything out on the table, or can we?
We can show it.
I'll show it.
It won't show the table, but your camera's right there.
Yeah.
Because I get all your stuff. If you got something else you want me to put down, I can. All I do is take a picture and I put it on Insta or something.
Oh, let's do this. Yeah, we're gonna say we
got somebody can.
Yep.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom! And welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Mallard Bay. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
I'm here. Another beautiful day in Texas.
Yep.
Turkeys are gobbling this morning.
Had some up by the lodge.
Got the plan for Saturday morning. We're ready to go.
It's Monday. Just got back from Bass Classic, and I'm the dumbest guy in the room today.
You should be used to it by now.
Surrounded by doctors.
And
Andy.
College graduate,
yeah,
Andy.
Yeah.
I got the bachelor's from Tech.
Well, you graduated from Tech, so that's not like Harvard or anything important.
Hey, I graduated from Tech.
Where'd you get your doctorate from, though?
Oh, man.
See there?
No,
hold on.
Myself
That's
out now.
That's okay. No, that's what I meant.
UT Southwestern Medical
UT.
School.
Hear that?
I know.
UT.
But it's Southwestern, so I don't know if we claim that. I still tech grad
right.
all the way.
See there? Once that Raider rash goes through you,
that's right.
It stays with you forever.
Yeah, Raider rash will stay with you forever. So with us, we got Dr. Mike from TCU and Dr. Cody from University of Texas Southwest.
Yeah, it's all right.
And we got Andy Shaver from Knox City and
Red Raider.
Raider.
Texas Tech. That's
so
right.
I went to more colleges than you did. See there?
Found the one that I like. Stick with it.
I didn't.
Which one did you like more? Tech or UT Southwest?
Oh, man, they're very different experiences, right? For undergraduate, Texas Tech, 100%. Yeah. But graduate degree was great at UT Southwestern. I don't have any complaints. They're actually a part of the first doctor program that they had there, so it was really, really incredible to be a part of that with them.
Dr. Mike, question for you.
Sir.
College question. College is absolutely ridiculous what it costs for kids to go to school. Now, you teach at TCU. That's a different deal because that's a private school.
Correct.
And I don't care if they charge $1 million a year. That's should be private. But college is definitely not going to be as important as it was the last 30 years and the next 30 years, I don't think. I think trade schools are coming there. Am I right on that, do you think? Or do you think that's going to – is that wrong?
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something there. I jokingly tell my students frequently, if I could go back and do it all again, I'd be a plumber.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's no shit right now.
I mean, I've got friends that, in fact, one of the guys coming out for the hunt runs his own plumbing industry or business in California. Mm-hmm. All government contract, new build, and all he does is sign contracts and collect paychecks. So if I had to go back and do it again, I'll be a plumber.
I tell people that all the time. It'll be 20 years from now, there's going to be two ladies running each other at the grocery store. Oh, what's your junior do? Oh, he's a cardiologist. What's your junior do? Oh, he owns a plumbing company. Oh, really? And the plumbing company is going to be a lot more important than that cardiologist probably.
Yep.
I don't want to speak out of turn here or out of school here, but I think that the valedictorian and the salutatorian from our high school are both not going to college. They're both going to trade school for this year. I don't know if that's ever really happened before. Because you get like the free tuition or whatever for a year with valedictorian and salutatorian. But I think that their plan as of right now, from what I've heard, is they're both going to go to like HVAC school or plumbing and just go on from there.
We have a valedictorian in our family and didn't use that degree.
She did not. My wife. Yeah, but I mean,
I didn't want to call out that you're the dumber one in your family, but I was thinking that.
But I just think that times are changing.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. I was valedictorian in my high school.
Yeah.
And then went to Tech, obviously, and then got my doctorate in physical therapy. Man, they don't tell you the business side of things as much as they should going through those and like what to expect, especially in the medical field. Oh my gosh, I lived Obamacare through that, like medical reimbursement and how it changes the landscape of the medical field. And you're sitting there, I spent this much of my life and my time, and this is all we're getting reimbursed, and now we got to do more.
Did you see where he come out yesterday bragging about that?
No.
Because I think yesterday was the 11th anniversary of it or something.
Yeah.
Talk about how great it's been for our country. It's a freaking disaster.
Absolutely.
It's the second biggest lie ever told is you can keep your doctor. You know, it's been terrible. For people like us that are self-employed, I can't get health insurance worth crap. I got health insurance. I might as well just throw $1,000 a month out the window driving down because you can't use a damn thing. I mean, you can't. If you have something bad happen, maybe. But you're better off not to have insurance and go to an ER anyways.
They're going to treat you.
Yeah, they got to treat you, and you can pay them $5 a month, and you'll be done with it.
Yep.
And there's not an answer to the medical problems that we have in our country that I know of, a common sense solution. But Obamacare was not the answer for it at all.
No, it wasn't. They were expecting a lot of those young people to dive into it, and they didn't. They just got a lot of pre-existing conditions added into it, so it just put it on its head immediately. So they were just trying to play catch up.
I think there is an answer, but I think it would be painful for a lot of people, right? Like it would just cost a lot of money. Just have everything be private and pay as you go. I would think.
I would rather take my $1,000 a month and pay someone. I don't go to the doctor ever. I'm lucky. Knock on wood. I probably have to go today now.
Right.
But I'm 57 years old, and I've had one time that I've had to be in the hospital for 2 days over a heart deal one time. But that's it.
Yeah.
In my whole life. And I'm not a beacon of health looking here. Like doctor, look at Doc over here. He looks like he comes out of freaking Muscle Fitness magazine now. You working out every day?
Almost every day.
You swim?
I do. I haven't found a good pool lately. So since we moved from North Fort Worth to Aledo, I haven't been swimming a lot.
Well, I've had a ton of Aledo people lately. I've been around. That's the new. I think everybody's from Aledo now.
It's a great area.
I met a guy at the Bass Classic this weekend that was a Aledo guy. His son fishes on their bass team. Real nice guy.
Yeah.
And then, everybody thinks everybody from Aledo now after Landman is just rolling in money with 18-year-old honeys throwing pool parties all the time.
Everywhere I go now, you live in Aledo. Have you seen Landman?
I haven't seen it. That's where the owner's from?
No.
Or is that where Billy Bob's from?
That's where Billy Bob's wife's last husband was, and they have a house. Is that house in Aledo?
It is. It's actually about 2 miles from me. I can't remember the name of the family that owns it. It's a gorgeous house.
Oh, it is beautiful. How far? I don't think I've been everywhere in Texas, and I don't think I've ever been in Aledo. How far is Brock from Aledo?
17 miles.
Oh, it's further than I thought then.
Yeah, so it's on the other side of Weatherford. So
Okay,
if you come out of Fort Worth.
Because I've played golf at Sugar Tree. Is that the name there?
Yep.
A bunch of times. We used to play golf there a lot. That's a hard fucking course, dude.
It is.
If you get off the fairways,
It's tight.
you need a damn chainsaw. But so Aledo and Brock are not, they're 17 miles apart then.
Correct,
Because
yeah.
Brock's growing like crazy too now.
It is. Well, a lot of people from Aledo decided it was getting too big, so they actually moved out to Brock. So Brock's going to be becoming Aledo version 2.
So they did film some of that at Aledo then.
They used two houses there, from what I understand.
They did that, and then the Moncrief Ranch out there is actually where they shot a lot of the Derek stuff, that kind of stuff. Actually, a good friend of mine is one of the main directors for Taylor out there.
Somebody told me this weekend that they live by the house. I guess the house that Billy Bob and them live in that's supposed to be in Midland is in North Fort Worth somewhere.
Yeah, a lot of actually those actors and stuff are kind of moving out in that area during all this filming and stuff. Yeah.
Before we get into what we're here for with you guys, they had the Bass Classic we were at this weekend, and they had the Celebrity Pro-Am, and one of the funniest people I know is a black guy named Lavelle Crawford that's a comedian. Have you ever listened to him? He's funny. Anyways, he fished in that deal, and he won. Him and another guy won that deal.
Right.
But anyways, the Bass Classic was a really interesting thing. If you may come out to Fort Worth and seen it this weekend, and come out, I had a lot of people come out and say hello. It was good talking to all you people. So let's get into the meat and gravy of this thing. You guys are with the Big Country Veterans, is it Association or Hunt?
Nonprofit
Organization. And y'all put on one hell of a hog hunt.
So we do. That's kind of how we started.
Up at J. Bob Daniels' place.
Yes, sir.
It's
That's Circle Bar Ranch.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
In Truscott, just north of here. And I've seen the video. How many helicopters will they have there?
We usually fly 5 at a time, kind of on the hour every hour, for 2 days straight.
Wow.
So,
And it's all, are these all combat veterans or just veterans in general?
So we focus on combat veterans. We found that unique event really kind of speaks to them in a lot of ways. I'll let Mike maybe speak on that a little bit more, because he was actually one of the veterans that went through our program. Pretty unique story of how he came involved with Big Country Veterans. But honestly, we started as just an event. We actually didn't probably plan at the time to form it into the nonprofit that it is today. It was just kind of a way to give back to our veterans. And we found that what really became the magic sauce was finding the right ones to come out there. And I'd love to speak on that a little bit more. But really, that unique event started us, and it's a flagship event that we do every year now, the end of April, usually the third week. But with Easter being the third week, being late this year, we bumped it back, so it's in the fourth week this year. But it's become something that has created a community beyond kind of explanation between the veterans, the volunteers, the sponsors that come out there and help make it possible. it just becomes a place where everyone's kind of on the same playing ground and sharing, and kind of like we're doing right in here and just visiting around a table. And
I've got some friends of mine from Wichita Falls that volunteer to go there because every year he's like, "Hey, you got to come up there," and we're always out of town. Now, when is the hunt? Is it this weekend coming up?
No,
no, it's next
weekend.
month. Fourth week of April this year.
Fourth week of April.
Correct.
Okay.
So how did you get involved with them?
I actually had a friend of mine recommend that I attend the hunt as one of the veterans who had, Kaz had attended, I think, a year or two before. So I didn't normally do veteran events. I always stayed away from them. And I decided to give it a shot. So he recommended me. And actually, we got bumped from COVID. So they canceled the hunt. And then the following year, they reached out and said, "Hey, we just kept the list from last year. Want to come on out?" So I begrudgingly went. I actually wasn't going to go. I was going to not show up. And the day before, my wife kind of pressured me and go give it a shot, go do it. So I'm glad I did.
Why didn't you want to go?
You know, there's a lot of veteran organizations out there.
Yeah.
And this is just my personal experience. Most of them are self-serving organizations about themselves, and it's all focused on how great they are. And it's this one touch point per veteran, and how many veterans can we cycle through to make ourselves feel good? And I didn't like being around that, and I didn't ever want to associate myself with it. So as I got closer to this event, I feared that I'm going to get out there and it's going to be this, self-licking ice cream cone, and I'm going to be out there stuck for the weekend. So my wife was like, "Well, tell you what, if it's only 3 hours away, if it sucks, I'll just come pick you up and be done with it." So I went, and I think day 2, I hadn't even met Cody before. I just walked up to him and I'm like, "Hey man, whatever I've got to do, I want to be out here next year." There was something about the ranch, and I think thinking about it last night, driving back to Knox City, I think it's the family they create. It's the community. It's like the wholesome American family experience that I think a lot of military folks look for, that a lot of us didn't grow up with, or that we missed from having that family relationship in the military. Yeah. So it was a great weekend, and I'm glad I went. And now I try to get as many of my friends to go as I can.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to be a weird thing, though, because like you said, I'm sure all these places started out with great intentions, and then they just grow into this thing that nobody recognizes anymore. And it's not serving what their original purpose was, right? So, I mean, it's hard to keep your feet on the ground.
100%. And I think, go ahead.
I've just noticed that with a lot of the veteran groups that we use. Not all of them. There's some that are really, really good.
There's some great ones.
But there are a lot of them, it's about a guy going to do his hunt.
Yes.
He's using that as an excuse to go all over and hunt on his own.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he don't really have a message to convey other than he served time.
That's it.
And I'm not knocking that at all, because we need everyone to serve. But just because you served doesn't mean everyone's got the same story or the same interest. There are people going to this is going to sound bad. I'm probably going to piss people off, but I piss people off every one of them. There's someone right now going into a base somewhere in America. And we'll use Lackland just Lackland Air Force Base, that's never been anywhere except in an office at Lackland Air Force Base. And they're going to get out and they're going to try to use everything to get extra stuff out of the world. I don't think that's right. Now, I appreciate them serving. I never served. More than I ever did. I'm not knocking that. But they haven't done anything no different than anyone else going to a regular job. Am I correct or wrong? Am I wrong on that, or am I right?
I think how we answer that, just as an organization, is that we're very focused on the type of veterans that we want to serve, that we want to put energy, assets, our sponsors behind. And we've found it's the ones that actually, like Mike, don't want to come out, or they're hesitating.
Right.
Or, typically the ones that are knocking on your door to say, "Hey, you want to come do a hog hunt? I want to be out there," are probably not the ones that benefit from what we do as much as we would like, because really, the helicopter hunting is great, but it's actually a way to get them there. And a lot of times it's not even that. A lot of these guys are like, man, not to be too frank, but it's like, hey man, I've done enough killing in my life. Like, it didn't really speak to me. Mike's kind of has a similar story to that. But one thing we do too, as well, is like let them know, hey, this is actually for a bigger purpose while we're out here. You guys know the hog population is just detrimental to this area in Texas, and Texas in general. And so it's something we share with them that first night to say, hey, man, we're actually here for a mission. All these landowners have donated their land, and we're doing them a huge service by being here to help them kind of thin that population. And the great thing about the veterans that we bring out, they don't miss very well. And so it's been great.
The people that we've hunted a lot of different organizations, and there's a lot of them are really good, and a lot of them you see through pretty quick. And we talk about this all over. But some guys need ministering, and they need to be around their brothers. A guy like me, I've never been in battle. I don't understand that. I understand from watching TV, and I've got lots of friends that be there, and I know they're hurting, and I feel for them that hurt, and I wish, and I could talk to them, but I can't. I don't know that. But you got to have someone that's been there. It's like going to a rehab deal. The best rehab counselor is someone that was a druggie or a junkie or something. I think. Never had to go to none of that shit either. But if I did, I want someone that's got skin in the game that can understand. And I think that's what's good when you get these groups together. And that's what makes, I'm trying to fix what I said a minute ago. There's people out there that have never experienced nothing but other just go to an office for 4 hours a day and they get off. But they try to take the same avenues that's designed for people that are combat veterans or people that's had some terrible things happen to them in the military. It don't have to be combat. Right. And that they hijack that platform sometimes. Right. And that bothers me because most people on my end are trying to give back to people. And when you get burned, y'all vet y'all's people. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's one of the things. And I tend to agree with you. As a veteran, this probably doesn't come across the right way, but not every veteran is the same.
No.
Yeah.
We all get thrown in this big bucket and you've got different experiences. We do serve primarily focus on the combat veteran. However, we also know that even that person that might be driving on base to Lackland today, not the one abusing the system because unfortunately they exist, but we serve all veterans. But there are those folks out there that take advantage of the system. And I think the VA is probably my favorite example of that. And just listening to all these people complain. Yeah. Most of them weren't injured in the military, but now expect the VA to take care of them for life. Just because you served for 4 years doesn't mean the VA is now your healthcare for the rest of your life. It's only designed to take care of injuries that the military caused. Or if you're a retiree, it's a little bit of a different story. But there's these different levels of veterans. And I think we just throw everybody in a bucket and say, well, they're a veteran. And that's not necessarily the case, unfortunately.
Yeah. We had Jack Zimmerman on. We gave you his book earlier and lost both legs in combat. And like he said, I mean, he basically said the same thing. Like the VA is so clogged down, like he can't even get good health care there because it's a month or so. And even if you do get there, the care is way sub quality of what you can get in the private industry. And he's just like, there needs to be some sort of like merit system. Whereas, you got a guy that has no legs, he should be able to get the health care that he needs right away rather than somebody, like you said, just served 4 years, got out, and now it's like, well, I can go here.
Yep.
Right? I mean, it would unclog the system a little bit.
It is clogged down with people that probably aren't qualified for the care that they're asking for.
Right.
But the VA tries to do right by all of them and take care of them. So you have veterans that actually need care, but can't get into care because it's overcrowded and clogged. Because there's folks out there that just unfortunately take advantage of the system.
Yeah. How many heart surgeons in the military? I know we don't know how many there are, but a cardiac surgeon. What would make him stay in the military instead of going to do private practice? Because the military doesn't pay doctors what doctors on the outside make, do they? They don't get no bonus pays of really, do they?
They do.
Is it much though enough to make them compete with the outside world?
It's not. I'd say it's competitive. I know based on the number. So having come out of the healthcare field in the Navy, I've worked with a lot of physicians, and based on your specialty and board certification, years of practice, you do get an annual stipend, and it's a neurologist and a cardiologist. One, they're going to come in as I remember my first cardiologist I worked with came in the Navy as an 06 because of their level of experience and, how their surgeon skills, and then annually got a stipend of, I think, a couple $100,000 as a cardiologist in the Navy. So they do a good job of taking care of those guys. And most of them are there just to serve, giving back. They're driven to be part of the system to take care of, fellow service members.
See, I'd like to take some of that Ukrainian money and this Doge money that we're finding, not political, but I'm being honest with you, and give that money back to schools, public schools all across the United States, because we're going to give it all back to the state, let them actually give the money to the schools, because with a bunch of dummies running around, we're in trouble in a couple of years. We've got to educate our kids better. But I would like to see the military be able to afford to pay a doctor. If we've got a great 24-year-old orthopedic surgeon kid that's learning how to operate at West Point or wherever they send him to medical school at, we got to be able to keep him.
Right.
Make it worth his while to stay as a surgeon until he's 55 years old and wants to retire, instead of going in the practice, because you ain't got to worry about dealing with liability insurance and all that other.
Right.
I'm assuming you don't, do you? Do they have to have?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure there's
covered.
some malpractice and that's covered. I think at least from
But they don't have to pay for it themselves, though.
Right. I think it's kind of built into the system. I think that was the biggest thing for me from physical therapy wise, is like the guys in the military that were PTs had what's called autonomy. So they could go out and like write scripts. They could, prescribe medicine and things like that in, the civilian world, private world, sector, we couldn't do. And that's one of the reasons they started shifting just physical therapy departments into the doctorate programs to try to expand that, that ability for us to have, really use our education, right? And not kind of fall into the system where, hey, you got to go see this doctor and this doctor to now see your PT. Right? Get a script.
I think that would be so we could retain some of these doctors, because you look at I do not know, this is me off the cuff, but I'll bet in the 50s, if you'd want to try to find the best surgeons you could get, you were looking for guys that served in Korea as surgeons, because they seen stuff and it's from watching MASH and it's a TV show,
right?
But that's probably based on some pretty true stuff. But they were cutting edge surgeons on a lot of factors, and they worked on people every single day. Just like if you got a surgeon now, I'd rather have a surgeon that come out of Chicago, Cook County Hospital at their emergency room, because his workload is amazing.
Yep.
And he's going to get a lot of experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we targeted high trauma facilities when I was active duty.
Yeah.
To do rotations and training, and we went to the places that had the worst.
Inner city ghetto hospitals is where the shit's going on.
Oh, JPS, man.
Yes.
They see.
you saw everything there.
Yeah. Parkland, same way. I had a doctor used to hunt with me years. He delivered babies, and he worked at Parkland. And do you remember what the number was? It was phenomenal, the amount of illegal babies that he delivered. I mean, and I'm talking like, I think he told me he delivered 10,000 babies, and I'm sure my numbers, and like 8,800 of them were illegals. But just the workload at those places. But that's where you get your experience at.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the unfortunate thing is what I did when I got out did neuro rehab for a while at Baylor Institute for Rehab downtown Dallas, and I was on their stroke, CVA, like spinal cord, traumatic brain injury and stuff. And they're so competitive to get into, but they knew that, and so unfortunately, like being a new grad, they didn't pay well. Nothing against them, but they didn't have to in a way, because it was so competitive to get into. So then it became, all right, do you support your family and do what you love, or do you got to make it now a decision to step out of something you really enjoyed because of how it's set up, unfortunately. So nothing bad against Baylor. I loved it there. Don't get me wrong.
We need veterans to have the best care they can get.
Agreed.
And we need to pay the doctors where they can go there. I did not realize till just recently, I drove by Wichita Falls, Shepherd, where I used to work when I was 20 years old, and their hospital's gone now. And they've closing these hospitals down. When you first got in the military, every base had a hospital, did it just about?
It did. And we've shut them down.
Why? Is it because of staffing, or is it because...
I don't know. That to me is kind of new, that we're consolidating, going to these regional medical centers. I know military medicine has gone purple, if you will. It used to be the Navy, the Air Force, the Army had their own. Mm-hmm. Everything's becoming tri-service. In fact, a lot of the training is all down in San Antonio now for all the medics. So it's really all about being a tri-service organization or facility. So I think they're shutting down some of the lower volume places and moving them, which I think is unfortunate.
Well, I think that's where, circling back, obviously, the big country veterans now is where we're trying to find the gaps, that are out there. Yes, we started as a helicopter hog hunt, but now really majority of our focus is what can we really do to make impacts? What can we really do now that we have these veterans that are actually finding a place where they feel at home, finding a community, starting to kind of open up and share, maybe some of the challenges that they're having out there And these guys have been out for a while, some of them, they hadn't done anything for 10 years since they retired. Now they're engaging again. And most of them are, in the past have been trying to find it on their own, and now they find this community. And so that's why we started the programs that we do now. Like we started as a helicopter hawk hunt. Now we're doing service dogs, couples retreats, medical rehab partnerships, additional hunting, fishing, outdoor adventure trips to stay connected. It's about making that single touch point that hopefully makes a moment of impact that then sends them on a trajectory, like a lifelong connection. Really, that's what we're about.
I want to switch topics here just a little bit. So TBI is a big thing that a lot of veterans are coming out with, traumatic brain injury. Have y'all seen any of the literature on ibogaine? It's a hallucinogenic that has it's kind of what Rick Perry is going after right now and getting more veterans.
Is this a natural deal?
Yeah, it's kind of, I guess I don't know if it's like ayahuasca, but it is something that is helping a lot of veterans with traumatic brain injury and PTSD. Have y'all seen any of that?
Yeah, I kind of follow some of that stuff. Before I go down that road, I get amazing care at the VA, for the record. I just want to throw that out there. I'm very happy with my VA care. So for all those people complaining, I want to thank the VA because they take good care of me.
Your experiences have been very good then.
Been amazing at all 3 VAs that I've been a part of since I retired.
While we're on the VA, did Trump, when he got in, did it make it better? And I'm not trying to be political, but I mean, we're all Trump people, or we are around here. So, and most, but I'd heard that when he went in and he fixed a lot of the problems. Are they still fixed now, or did regress?
So, and I'm going to share a little bit of a story with you on that. And I think while we're seeing what Trump's doing, this administration compared to last one, this will kind of answer why. So I was at Department of State last time Trump took office, and I was in Mogadishu. I can say this now because I'm no longer affiliated with the government. And I was listening to the ambassador and some of the foreign service officers talk to their counterparts, and they were telling them, Trump had just taken office and they were worried about all their programs getting cut. And I heard the ambassador tell these folks, hey, just wait 4 years and everything will go back to normal. And they had just approved a $10 million Arrows Across Somalia program. Yeah, they were going to take bow and arrows and they were going to go across Somalia, and they were going to have people come together and build community by shooting, I guess, targets. But that's kind of the stuff that when the first administration happened, I think a lot of the top got changed and impacted, but all that crap that was embedded deep inside, like all those lower level, folks that we're seeing kind of go away now, I think they learned, like, you've got to clean house. You can't just cut the top of the tree off. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that a lot of those things stick, because a lot of that, I mean, I transitioned right out of the military, right at the Trump last administration. So I didn't get to see a lot of the military piece to it, but from the VA side, I've never had any bad experiences. And I think they've done a great job with taking care of those that are entitled to care and that get their care there. I'm hoping that continues. I know there's a lot of great people in place now, and I hope they make some of these changes for the better that are long-term, not just the next 4 years.
So you were in Mogadishu.
I was.
Why are we there?
So we put it's interesting. We put there at the international airport, we have our embassy, as well as there's a NATO facility, and as part of NATO, peacekeeping force, which fucking NATO's a joke. Just going to throw that out there. I've worked with those people are clowns.
Amen. 100% here.
Good fucking Lord. So,
I like this dude.
So anyway, NATO, you got your NATO base there, but man, they all rely on American support. And so if America's there, then everything else will be okay, because we're going to support and take care of everything. So for whatever reason, our government has decided that having a base or an embassy there in Somalia is a good thing. Now, I know we have some, military forces that work in and out of there that kind of help things in that geographical area with some combatant commands, obviously fight terrorism and all that. So I think that's needed, but it's just
there's no gain for us by being there then.
We're limited. I mean, you're limited on where you can go, limited on what you can do. I mean, we're on this, small facility, and whatever's happening in Somalia itself, I mean, isn't really impacted by what we're doing. Like, we're not making life better there. Really, to me, it's a forward operating base for us.
We're just spending a lot of money propping up their economy.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, it's just, I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I was just a knuckle dragger, gun carrier. So I didn't make policy or any of that, but just sitting back watching, I realized just how much money we absolutely waste on just foreign shit.
Did you see where the president of Congo, I think it's a president or prime minister, where they have in Congo, or leader, dictator, whoever it is, he came to the United States. He told Trump and them, we'll sell you our minerals. They want the Ukrainian deal. You come here to Congo. I think it was Congo too. You come here. We've got trillions of dollars of it's not pure materials. What is it? What do they call them materials over there? Rare materials or whatever it is. They got tons of cobalt there.
Yep.
And we'll give you, you make us a deal and you come over here and build a base and you do this and mine them. We're all in on this stuff.
Yep.
We basically would like to be your 51st state is what they're basically saying. But these poor countries are, if you're going to make a deal, we would love to be a part of that. But right now, all we're doing is supporting and paying money, but we don't get nothing out of it except to put our kids in harm's way.
Well, I served for 27 years, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't see anything change in these countries that we spent all this time. I mean, there was no difference between when I was an E1 and when I was an E9. The countries look exactly the same. They're having the same issues. I don't remember. And I was listening to the radio the other day, and that Michael Jackson song came out. I love Michael Jackson, but "Feed the World" or whatever it was years ago.
I remember that.
Yeah, I'm like, well, shit.
We
they're
are the
still
world.
starving. Yeah, none of that has made an impact on these other countries. So obviously something's not working.
No, 90% of the aid money gets taken right off the top by third world dictators and feed
that's
money
the
back to our
problem.
politicians.
They're corrupt.
Yes.
In these places, and it doesn't get down to the person that it's supposed to get to. And again, just my humble opinion as a old military dude.
No, that's what we want to have, because we want to hear that, because that's the story coming out from the veterans. If you talk to the brass in Washington, everything's peaceful and rosy, but when you talk to actual people that have served and been there, it's not so good.
Well, like there's more people enslaved today than there ever was at the height of the slave trade here in America. And I mean, it's like, there's no slavery here, but there is all over the rest of the world.
Yeah, all these great arguments we have in this country just make me want to laugh.
I think historically, the stuff that's happened in South Africa right now is going to be a big player in the next 10 years of world politics, because they're killing white people left and right everywhere, and nobody wants to talk about it. The South African guy basically we cut off their funds, and he's mad about it, and it's genocide down there, and we're not going to do nothing about it. But we always go save everybody else, but we're not getting involved down there. And we have a lot of local people that are South Africans here right now. Their families are going through all this stuff. Yeah. I mean, and for the people who don't know what's going on, they are murdering white people, taking the land from them, and then it's their native land. No, someone down the road sold it or something. It's them people's land. You're stealing it from them, and if they don't get out, you're killing them and you're killing their families. And it's a terrible deal.
Yep.
But we will do Somalia, but we're not going to help them people. And that's what wears me out.
Yeah, white Christians in South Africa, sorry about your bad luck, but we'll go save everybody else and, launch a full-fledged assault against these other people. I just saw a video the other day, woman, same thing, South African, came onto her husband's land, killed the husband, 6 guys raped her, and now she's, trying to pick up the pieces on figuring out what to do. Obviously lost the farm, but I don't know. So after... in 1993, didn't we completely pull out of Mogadishu? Or did we always have people kind of there? Because that was a Black Hawk Down incident.
It was, I believe, and I can't speak between the time of 93 to when I showed up there.
Right.
However, we had the airport facility is kind of where the NATO set up, as well as that's where all the embassies are, kind of this self-contained little island. And that's, from what I understand, has been there since that particular event.
Right.
And the justification behind it, couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Nothing's different. I mean,
still a shithole.
Name a place in
people
the
are great.
world. Seriously, you said it, bingo. Name a place in the world right now outside of the United States, and our big cities are shitholes here too. Name a place outside of the United States, a foreign country, that's gotten better, that we've pumped money into in soldiers in the last 50 years. You can't think of nowhere in the Middle East, because I saw a video the other day of Iran in 1972. Ladies wearing dresses. It was nice. I've seen videos of Tripoli and Benghazi in the 50s. Well, that's because the Muslims moved in. But there's none of those places that we've spent trillions of dollars in the world, and there is nothing better.
No, it's unfortunate traveling to these places and watching the effort that goes into them, and nothing improves. It's no better than when you got there. And then after that failed exit from Afghanistan, where, I hope those people pay and are held accountable at some point. But we just took a big shit on that and walked out, and all that stuff. Just any progress gone.
What when you listen to TV and it's the media, all you hear about is the praise from all the administration, how things go. But then when you talk to the real soldiers, there's none of that praise going on at all.
Yeah, I stopped listening to the news probably, I can't tell you how many years ago. And here's what did it. This is actually what did it for me. We were in Iraq on a mission, and for some reason we had this embedded CNN crew. I didn't want them with us, but someone made the decision that they got to sit within our perimeter for safety. And we had this individual that we had a checkpoint where to control our area. And this guy comes pedaling up on a bicycle with this huge box on the back of it. The guy standing up at the gate guard post, kept telling him, hey, go away, go away. And he kept doing this all day long. So finally, he got past the first barricade and decided to go further than he had ever gone. And he threw the bike, like, I'm going to launch this bike at you. So we don't know what's in this little box on the back of this bike. So luckily there was nothing in it, but the guy that was at the checkpoint took this bike and threw it into this little river so that this guy couldn't get the bike back. And when CNN aired that, they didn't air the fact that this guy had been testing the gate all day, or the checkpoint, just that this mean American had thrown this person's bike into the river. And I was like, what? That's not at all what happened. So I think from that point forward, I realized that these people report the story that they want to tell, not the story that is actually happening. And we've bought into it hook, line, and sinker across this country that these people that, sit on TV and tell you what is happening probably have no fucking idea what's really going on. Zero.
It's kind of like every time a cop shoots someone, they were a future engineer or doctor. No, they're a prescription or pharmacist. They've been selling drugs on the street their whole life. They're not going to do nothing but sell drugs until they get shot by another bad guy or something like that happens. Very few
it's
ever change. Yeah. But that's the same deal right there. He was poor guy. Well, no, he was trying to see about what if that had been a bomb and killed everybody.
Yep. Right.
I think this last election has ruined mainstream media for their news.
People don't
watch that crap no more.
I hope so.
But it makes you wonder how much bullshit. How old are you?
52.
I'm 57. In my lifetime, how much bullshit's been fed to me from the media, from Walter Cronkite, who was the first guy I remember as anchor, until now. All the bullshit we've been lied to about our country, our government, our military, everything's been a lie.
Yep.
And that's what pisses me off about the way we do our veterans.
Yep.
We send our veterans to fight wars for politicians or for greedy corporations, and it's a bullshit deal, and we need to get out. I think we need to get out of the United Nations and NATO.
Well,
I've never had a good experience with NATO. That, again, my humble opinion.
No,
I'm
but
sure
that's
there's plenty of people out there that disagree.
Who?
I don't know, but there's somebody.
You find me a soldier that served time over there that says that we need to be in NATO.
Oh, I'm sure there's one out there somewhere. Probably the same one that's got their hand out every time they turn around telling you that they're a veteran.
How many? What would you think? I bet you 90% of the veterans have had to serve overseas will say that NATO is no good for us.
I would hope so. I mean, I would hope so. My brothers and sisters would back me on that. But they have to have been there to experience it. Not anyone that's I met someone at a school in Fort Sam that was part of NATO, and they were a nice person. I'm sure. I've met a lot of nice people. I would want to serve with most of them.
I grew up in Wichita Falls. There's a ton of NATO pilots that get training there. Not bad guys. Most of them that I knew were really, really good guys. But they're foreign guys that's coming over to train. But without the United States, we don't need and I'm the same with UN. I think we should be out of the UN. All that is bankrolled by the United States, both the NATO and the UN. There ain't no place for it. What do you think? Because you're the quiet one here now.
Well, I don't know. I'm just gonna. What would I know? Because I didn't serve with.
No, but what's your opinion?
My opinion, I'm going to circle it back to kind of what we're doing and hopefully making an impact as far as like getting the people that have been there and experienced it together. So they feel like it's okay to share some of these things in a room where there's like-mindedness, and they can say, yeah, I sacrifice all this, and now I come back and get spit on and this and that. Like, it's nothing, obviously, compared to Vietnam. I can't speak on that one there, but I think that's one of the biggest things for us is like finding these veterans that can come, open up, share what they've done, like very real, in a room where people can understand it and hear about it, and then be able to, connect on that level. One of the biggest things we have, like, these guys are like, why did I do what I did? And then they come to this event. We do the helicopter. Now we have families coming and kids, and they see it, and they're just walking around. They're like, this helps me remember. This is why I did what I did. This is why we sacrifice so much.
We need to fix it, though, by listening to them and not send the next group of kids to do the same stuff over and over again. Because this is a cycle that's been going on for, probably 80 years.
Well, I think that getting men or people in leadership now that have been there, experienced that, like some of our veterans that have gone through our program have been, appointed into positions by Trump, that I think they're going to be extremely important impacts.
I think most everybody supports the military, but we want our military to have a fair chance.
Yeah.
We want them to go a place that they're making a difference in. And since World War II, how many places have we actually went to a battle where we actually had to go whip somebody's ass and be done, instead of having rules of engagement and all that other bullshit?
I can't think of any.
None. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
When, what year were you always in the military when they had rules of engagement?
So I joined in 1989.
How old were you?
I was 18.
18?
Just out of high school. I retired in 2016. So I span Desert Shield, Desert Storm, all the way through what we would consider kind of the last part of the active conflict going on in kind of Iraq and Afghanistan. I've served both in the Horn of Africa as well as Iraq and Afghanistan, and then a lot of other places kind of in between that special operations folks go. And
now, what were you? Can you?
Yeah, no, I've I'm an open book at this point. So I was actually a special operations independent duty corpsman. So I was in the Navy, trained by Joint Services. We all go to the Army Special Forces Medical Sergeant's course. It is the best medic course on the planet. Where it's a joint school. We've got Air Force. Well, Air Force used to attend. They're kind of doing their own thing now. But you got the Navy, who trains both their SEALs and their folks like me there. And then the Army obviously has their Special Forces guys there. From there, after that, I spent most of my career with the Marine Corps in force reconnaissance, and then I was a part of MARSOC when it stood up. And then I transitioned from there over to NSW, and I retired out of Joint Special Operations Command. So I won't go into exact organizational names, but I spent my entire career as a Special Operations IDC and kind of across the globe and, conflict.
Right. And your whole time in, were there rules of engagement, or did that change during your career?
So, rules of engagements is a funny thing, right? We always had PID, right? You always had to have positive identification on a threat. So if you ask someone, most people, when they look at somebody, the first thing they look at, is their face or their eyes.
Yeah.
Guys like me, I look at their hands, right? Because where are your hands at and what are they holding? Because your face may say one thing, but that gun might say something else. So rules of engagement really started with, PID. Are you an active threat? Unfortunately, not every service member understands and can get trained to that level. So you have to have these rules in there that, hey, someone might have a gun in a country that everybody has a gun. And that just doesn't necessarily make them a threat. So what are they intending to do with that gun?
Right.
So to me, rules of engagement made sense because you had, a young service member, maybe first time in Afghanistan, that they're not used to going onto a target or driving down the street where everybody's carrying an AK-47. I mean, that's life over there.
Right.
And if you identify a gun as a threat, you could potentially harm somebody that's not a threat. So we also knew there was a language barrier. So we tried to, here's a list of things to say to have, hey, be quiet, sit down, stop, whatever. Am I enunciating them right? Like I'm a white guy from Texas.
Yeah.
I can't, speak a foreign language. So we realized that there's these barriers in place. There's culture, there's language. So having a process to kind of go through to determine whether or not someone should or should not engage made sense to me. I think some organizations took it a little bit extreme on what they considered, this is and this isn't a threat. Whereas I think it should have been left up to the member standing on the ground at the time to determine what is and isn't a threat to their life.
Right.
And I think that's where we lost the focus, is not necessarily the fact that we had a process, but it's the interpretation of that process for the people that didn't actually ever go out of the wire and would never have to use the process.
Right.
So
So in those camel ghetto areas, everybody's got a gun.
everybody's got a gun.
So it's
Just personal protection.
That is how they protect themselves. You think about in the United States, if you have a problem, you call 911, and hopefully within a couple of minutes, you have the sheriff, the police, all great organizations, they come to your aid. However, when you travel abroad, their police aren't on a 911 dispatch. I mean, they're few and far between. So if the person next door wants your house, there's no 911 to call. And if you can't defend your own property, someone's going to take it. And I know for a lot of us in the United States, that just doesn't make sense, but that's not our culture. So these folks have their own weapons and, young kids walking down the street with an AK-47 on their back and in good repair. Like they took good care of them.
They know what they're doing
They
with it.
know what they're doing them. They know how to use them. And everybody has one. So if that's your threat, you could potentially harm somebody that actually isn't a threat to you.
what,
Right.
like
So
it-
it made sense at first, but then it just got perverted into something that got used against you in a lot of instances.
The question, yeah. So where we saw it, and we were, thank goodness, had great organizations and great leadership, and a lot of times kept out of that, minutia of what was happening, kind of in the conventional forces, larger organizations. But it was really after the after action reports where they would question folks and, well, why did you decide to shoot that person? Well, I yelled, and then I shot my flashlight, and then I told them to, and they kept, presenting a gun at me, and, so I shot. Well, then it gets, well, could you have waited like one more second? So they would tear people apart. And that's where the fear and this whole escalation of force thing came from, is like, wow, I feel like I'm having to justify myself, even though I've been told this is the process.
Right.
I'm being questioned on this process by someone that wasn't even there.
have no skin in the game.
Zero whatsoever.
That's like when they do the confirmations hearings in Senate. You got people asking questions about they don't know a damn thing about it, and they're question expert at something.
Right. Yep.
Where's me? What about when you go to Europe? Have you been to Europe too?
I've been to Europe.
Okay, guns are not. They're not very. That's why. That's why they're dealing with all the Muslim problems they have. They
Yes.
have no way to defend themselves.
I think that's probably a larger, and I think about that if we were a society, would we self-police that in the United States? I don't know. So I look at Europe, and if they had guns, would would Europeans run out on the street and, self-police that? I think that's a government control issue. Like if the government's missing the mark somewhere to keep their people safe. Not necessarily, I wouldn't expect my small town, if, we had someone, a bunch of people immigrated there and they were trying to change the dynamics, that our town would come out with guns and try to correct it. But I would hope that the government would do that. And I think that's what we're seeing in Europe, is not necessarily folks not being able to protect themselves, but the government not doing their job protecting themselves.
What gets me though is those people have no way of protecting themselves at all. There's no fear from the people that are coming there that are causing all the problems.
Right.
Because if they pull a woman off and they rape her on the street, what are you going to do? You're going to go get a stick or a broom after them? They can't.
Right.
Where in America, if you do that, there's a chance some redneck's got a gun going to shoot your ass.
There is a chance
And-
of that. Absolutely.
And I don't know what the household numbers are in the bigger cities, but you go down Knox City, 9 out of 10 houses have got a gun in them.
Yes.
And I'm assuming in Fort Worth where you live, it's probably the same.
I would say it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Across Texas.
And so we're never going to have a problem with a foreign military coming in and invading in the United States, I don't think. And I think if they did, they would get, every town they went to would be a battle for them. Where if you're in Europe, you don't have to worry about that because nobody has any guns.
Right.
And I think that, go back to the point is, with the Muslims problems that they're having in France and England, they're getting overran with these immigrants, and they're violent. The cops can't go there. Cops don't even carry guns sometimes.
Right.
But there's no way to protect themselves. But the bad guys all have weapons.
Right.
And that's what. So I was curious. So in Europe, people do not have guns. Then most countries won't let them have them.
The few times that we witnessed guns in public were usually folks that were serving their like drill weekend. They have a central armory that they get their weapons from, and you might jump on the metro and someone's got their, M16 slung over their shoulder because they're going back to their hometown for the weekend, and they're going to turn their gun back into their armory where they store it. But other than that, I mean, guns aren't a big part of the European culture.
Right.
So how did you decide on your career path in the military? Because that's always like a weird thing, right? Like you just kind of come in, you're green, and then it's just like, how do you go through that progression of, okay, this is the path that I want to take?
I got in trouble. That's how I figured out what I was going to do. I joined the Navy. I really had no options coming out of high school. Joined the Navy, and my recruiter threw a bunch of jobs in front of me. And this special operations stuff looked pretty cool. You could be a diver, EOD, or SEAL, or search and rescue. And I thought, man, that's kind of a cool place to be. But you had to have at the time, you had to have a job in the Navy. So I decided to be a corpsman because I figured worst case scenario, if I get through corpsman school and I fail out of like one of these tougher schools, I'm going to end up at a hospital somewhere with air conditioning and, not out, somewhere working
scraping barnacles off the bottom of a boat.
That's what I'm thinking, like scraping stuff off of a ship. So that was kind of my plan with the backup plan. And I graduated Corps School. I wound up going to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And I actually wound up going to internal medicine at clinic. And I'd answer phones. So I would put all the phones on hold. And I would just sit there at the front desk. And I remember one day, I didn't know who this person was, but this master chief walked by and was like, how are you doing this morning? I was like, I'm doing great, but I didn't join the Navy to be a fucking yeoman.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I'm sitting here at this desk answering the phone, not doing shit. And that turned out to be the command master chief of the hospital.
Ooh.
So he walked back to his office, called my chief, and jumped on my chief's ass about, why aren't you, putting this young lad to work? And that was pretty much my downward spiral from that point. So I got in a little bit of trouble. I had to go up to XOI and see the XO. And this is one of those stories I haven't really told a lot. But so me and my good friend Brent, I won't say his last name, but we had decided to sew on E3 onto our uniforms, but we were only E2s.
Okay.
And the reason we did that, our mindset was we were poor. It costs money to sew your stripes on your uniform. And we knew that there was just a 9-month waiting between E2 and E3. So we figured nobody will even know.
So we get ahead of the curve. We're going to save some money here.
Exactly. And nobody noticed at all until I'm standing in front of the XO, and the XO keeps calling me HA, but looking at my rank. And finally he stops and he's like, are you an HA or an HN? And I was like, oh, well, sir, technically I'm an HA. And I told him the story about I remember he just turned and looked at the master chief, and he's like, I'm going to let you handle this one.
So he didn't have a sense of humor about it.
I think he realized that I was not the standard cut of what they had working at the hospital. And I think he realized I probably needed some special attention and let the master chief take care of it. So the master chief took me back to his office and said, hey, I'm going to make a phone call. You're going to go out to Onslow Beach. You're going to get introduced to some folks that I think will fit your personality much better. So that was my introduction to Marine Corps reconnaissance. I spent some time out there, very painful time, and I realized these are the fucking dudes I want to be like. These are warriors. Like,
so they tried to mash on your ass, but they backfired on them because you liked it.
Well, I think, and I'm gonna give the commander kudos here. I think the commander realized that's probably where I needed to be, and he knew that the master chief would make that happen. So I think they took care of me in XOI that day and said, hey, get this kid out of this hospital before he fucking kills himself or somebody else.
Right.
And get him somewhere that he needs to go. So I went out to 2nd Recon Battalion. I got the shit beat out of me. And the Navy's infinite wisdom, I'm stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I needed to go to this place called Field Medical Service School so I could become this recon corpsman. And they decided, well, we're not just going to send you local. We're going to send you all the way to California and do your school out there. And then we're going to send you from there to Hawaii. And I'm like, why can't I just stay here? Like, it's literally a 5-minute drive down the road. But that's what happened. And from there, I became a reconnaissance corpsman and then progressed up to a special operations independent duty corpsman. And I'm very, very thankful of that commander and that master chief to this day, because I could have gone way different.
Now, is it common for them to send, like you were in the Navy and then they sent you to the Marines? Is that common to cross over like that?
Yeah, so I'm going to throw this out there for all my beloved Marine Corps brothers. The Marine Corps is a department of the Navy, and therefore they don't have some of their own programs.
Okay.
The Chaplain Corps, as an example, the Marine Corps do not have their own, and they don't have their own medical corps or hospital corps. So the Navy supports them in those two areas. So hospital corpsmen from the Navy are always embedded and serving with the Marine Corps. So chances are, if you join the Navy and you want to work with the Marine Corps, you can spend an entire career doing it. And a lot of my friends did exactly that. So it is not uncommon at all. I mean, we're kind of their docs.
Right.
And I loved it. Like I spent 15 years out of my entire career with the Marine Corps. I tell people I speak better Marine than I do Navy. But those individuals really kind of formed me into, I should have been kicked out of the Navy early in my career. So had it not been for that call, I probably would have been kicked out and ended up probably in jail or who knows what at this point. But yeah, I loved it. Loved serving with the Marines, working with those guys. I mean, just, warrior ethos through and through.
Cross training's I guess schooling is like Payne went to whatever his MOS school he went to was Coast Guard, Navy, Army, and all went to, but it was a specialized school.
Correct.
But that happens a lot though, don't it?
It does. We've done a lot of that. In fact, the hospital corps used to train in Great Lakes for their basic course. They've now moved down to Lackland Air Force Base. So all of the services train their medics at Lackland, their basic medics. And then from there, the Army will go to their 68 Whiskey or their advanced course. I think the Air Force will go to a different course. And then if the corpsmen are going to go to the Marines, they'll go to either Camp Lejeune or Camp Pendleton to go to Field Medical Service School to train to go work with the Marine Corps, which is an additional course.
So when you're in the Navy or Marine or the Navy and the Marines, that's why the Marines don't have an service academy, because they're part of the Navy, right?
Correct.
Okay, because there's an Air Force so that's why then.
Yeah, you get to make a choice. Got a lot of great Marine Corps officers that are Naval Academy graduates, and they get to make that choice at some point.
The Marine officers, a lot of them did go to Annapolis.
That is correct.
Okay, I did not realize that either. So I'm going to ask you a question everybody else is asking. You keep talking about Camp Lejeune. Did you have the water while you were there?
So, I'm like my timeline, I've seen all the commercials and I'm like, man, is this a free check? And it's like right before when I got there.
Was it?
And all the shit I've been exposed to, my least concern is the water in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. So
some attorneys getting wealthy off this class action lawsuit. That's what it's about.
Is it called
God bless
cancer or
that
what?
guy.
I haven't seen the lawsuit.
It's a cancer. Somebody got cancer at Camp Lejeune or asbestos or something. If you drink water at Camp Lejeune, call 1-800 Dr. Sokoloff or whatever it is.
yeah, I've seen it. It's like the cutoff's like right before my time. So I guess they fixed whatever was in the water. So
It's a class action lawsuit. It's just like
Roundup.
any of those. If they sue themselves and do a class action lawsuit, once they settle that, they don't have to pay a dime ever again. So that's why Tylenol 3 will probably have one, and everybody took Tylenol 3 jump on it. Everybody gets a check for $73. They give up $10 million, but it's the only time they can be sued. So
yeah.
But I think it's Camp Lejeune's water, isn't it?
It is. It's Camp Lejeune's water.
Yeah, I see that I don't know what show I watch, but it's on all the damn time.
I see it all the time.
Yeah, I was like, I wonder if I went to Camp Lejeune ever when I was growing up, just had a glass of water. Can
I get in on this?
I was there.
Yeah.
So how do they the training and everything? I mean, it's just. I mean, if you can't get into specifics, I understand, but just like live tissue and everything, like how do you simulate that?
Yeah. So and I know it's a touchy subject, and I've been retired long enough now that I don't give a fuck. Because I'll tell you that there is no replacement for a live patient model.
Right.
As a medic, going through the 18 Delta course, and that's really kind of where it started. They were using, a patient model in order to do different types of medical procedures. And that kind of grew where other, a lot of things start in special operations and then they kind of matriculate out into the larger force. And live tissue is no example or no exception. So I think once it became so public is when it got a lot of scrutiny behind it. But as a medic for, over 25 years and having served in all the areas of conflict and treated a lot of patients. Nothing prepared me like a live tissue model. Like that's, and you know, I've got a lot of friends now that work in these, you know, patient simulator models. I don't care if you can turn the switch off,
Right.
that makes the thing not die.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Like having something's, you know, a living, breathing animal or thing rely on you to take care of them and do the right thing. There's something to that. And they're taken very good care of. I mean, they're on an anesthetic plane, so they're not feeling any pain. And we're very appreciative for the opportunity they give us, because I think it has definitely saved American service members' lives overseas.
Right.
We used a lot of that, and I don't know that they still do it. Obviously, I've been retired a long time. I hope that they do, because that's where we honed a lot of the skills. We were real big in the whole blood buddy transfusion process.
Yeah.
And that is becoming, you know, we're starting to see that in our Metro EMS systems where they're starting to carry blood products, because it's been proven that, you know, if you can get blood on early, you can save more lives. So, and a lot of that stuff came from having the ability to work with a live tissue model to actually do a blood transfusion to see, can we actually do this?
Right.
And it's not a simulation on a computer or a machine that you can turn off and on. So I hope they don't get rid of it. I think it needs to be, you know, every medic should have the opportunity to train to that level. It's irreplaceable.
Yeah. Because, I mean, you're seeing direct consequences of your actions, right? I mean, like, will this work or not?
Yeah.
You know, and it's on display.
And it's not the first, you know, the first time you feel real blood,
Right.
shouldn't be your best friend's
Sure.
leg blown open because of a, you know, whatever piece of shrapnel or even if it's in training. You know, a lot of folks we treat are in training sometimes because training's dangerous.
Yeah.
And the first time that you treat a real patient shouldn't be, you know, out in a real event. It
Yeah.
should be in a controlled environment where you can actually understand the skills and why you're applying them. Because I think a lot of times we get focused on like sequential steps, and we don't really focus on understanding the why behind it. Mm-hmm. So I can give you a piece of paper that says this is how you treat someone that hemorrhages. But if you actually understand why you're doing it, makes it more applicable. And I think that's what we learned with live tissue is actually why we're doing this stuff.
Right. How hard is it, like, whenever you are in combat and then the chaos of it all? Because that's one thing that you can't simulate. Like, you can go you can go pretty far with the live tissue and everything, but just somebody screaming for their life in front of you, like, the stakes are higher.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that, like simulation. And we had a great platoon sergeant a long time ago, and I'll never forget this, but we were in a foreign country training, and he made us lay behind the berm and then had the rest of the platoon shoot over the top of the berm so you could hear
The whizzing
what a
by.
round sound. I mean, probably one of the stupidest things I ever did, but I'm young 18-year-old kid. I'm like, I'll do it.
Shoot it over my head. Just make sure you're
Yeah.
couple feet.
That didn't prepare you. You know, your training truly takes over. So I think it to the level that you've trained, at the level you've prepared, allows you to manage those situations. And from, you know, the first time somebody shoots at you, like I think the first, like, holy fuck, like somebody just really shot at me. Like,
Right.
this is real. Like, but you automatically notice, like, you're already doing things like that you're not even thinking about, like the way you react or the way that you move. So I think a lot of the training and conditioning, which I was great, you know, thankful enough that, you know, that's what we spent most of our time doing, was training and preparing. So I'm hoping that, you know, we're still doing that, because that's what made the difference for me.
Right. And they changed their tactics overseas, you know, right? Like you started seeing more like IEDs and everything.
Yeah. You know, so there was that evolution of the battlefield, right? Like, they're going to learn from what we do. And they're going to adjust. You know, initially we had freedom of movement, right? And then they figured out, hey, they drive these big heavy trucks. And there's only certain places you can drive. And it's not like driving down I-20. You know, the roads over there, if you're in a larger city, might have asphalt or concrete on them, but most of them are dirt. So it's not hard to dig a hole in the ground. There's a lot of debris everywhere. So it's not abnormal to see a pile of trash on the side of the road. So they leveraged kind of what their environment looked like and our inability to identify something that stands out in that environment. And they started, blowing vehicles up because we knew that that's how we got to where we needed to go. So we obviously pivoted when they pivoted. There's a lot of stuff that we learned that I don't even know if it's open source, with advances that they were able to determine, that we had to adjust our tactics on. The one that I remember the most, that kind of comes to my mind, was they started putting a linear charge along the side of their buildings that they thought might be assaulted by special operations troops. And the thought was, if these guys line up line up to get into the building with their tactics, because they would learn our tactics, they would watch them.
Yeah.
They would set that line charge off and pretty much the intent, cut everybody in half that's, standing there waiting to go into this facility. So I remember when they came out and they're like, hey, this is something we're seeing. And that changed, and we had to pivot in the way that we were doing call outs on targets, like, hey, don't go close to the target because they're booby trapping it. Mm-hmm. So it continued to evolve nonstop. And so it was a game for us. It was a game for them. And obviously whoever evolved the fastest won. And luckily for us, a lot of times that was us, but not always the case.
Yeah. Do guys that you help save over there, or do some of them still contact you?
Yeah, I've got a few of them that will call me up and be like, man, I still have this scar. I'm like,
you could have been a little more gentle.
Yeah. And that's, I think back to some of them, and it's a good feeling, like guys that just like, hey man, I thanks for what you did. But it's always with kind of a little bit of, tough love to it. So yeah, it's nice to get those calls or those texts, or, and kind of go back and forth and bullshit on that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I know Jack he said, he was half a man in a crater and everybody ran to him, bullets whizzing over their head just like they were whizzing over his head at the time. And, obviously they were in a IED field, and there was no hesitation, and they were in that crater with them.
Yep. It's all about, I know it's cliche, but we had mentioned them, Black Hawk Down movie earlier, and I think they kind of hit the nail on the head. It's about the person to your left and right. At that point, politics are gone. While you're there, someone has been injured. You're in a fight for your life. Everything else is just fucking bullshit at that point.
Right.
So, and the only thing that's going to get you out are who's to your left and right. So, doesn't surprise me that that's how everybody functions and reacts.
Does everything kind of quiet down and slow down whenever you're doing it, looking back at it?
Man, it's it's almost like, my experience has been time stands still.
Yeah.
I can think back to some of the firefights. I'm like, holy shit, that was like 55 hours. And they're like, dude, it was like 6 minutes. Like, it felt like 4 days. But yeah, it's almost, not necessarily an out of body experience, but it's like your senses are just in optimal performance. Like everything's just being slowly analyzed and evaluated. Yet it's still moving quickly, but it just seems like it takes forever. Mm-hmm. Routine tasks, it's like, why can't I get this done faster? You're moving as fast as you
moving at the speed of light.
So yeah, it's always kind of weird. And I think the first time it happened, it was almost like, man, was I like all fucked up today? Like, talking to my buddies, I'm like, hey man, how are you feeling? And they don't want to say anything either, because I think they're like, hey man, were we supposed to feel like, I was like almost out of body experience. So it was, so yeah, but I think you missed that, to be honest. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the hard part whenever you finally do get out? Because you spent decades, chasing that and being in that.
Yeah. I think Cody coined it the other day, chasing the dragon. I don't know if I call it chasing the dragon, but that's what you dedicated your entire life to do. That's what you train. It was what you train to do. I'm in my 50s now, and I look back at all my missed opportunities and like, I have no regrets, but at the same time, like I spent my entire life.
That was the best years of your life.
Oh yeah.
You were the healthiest that you'll ever be.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, I've got friends like, hey, let's go to jiu-jitsu. I'm like, bro, if I went to jiu-jitsu, my arm would probably fall off. Like I'm barely held together at this point. But earlier made the joke, like, do you work out? I have to, because I'm afraid if I don't work out, like I'm not going to be able to function. Like that's the only thing that I think keeps me moving at this point. My hips are bad. My knees are bad. My shoulders are bad. Like it's, the time, over time, it takes a toll on you. And I think the piece you miss the most are the folks to your left and right. And I think that's what Big Country Veterans, for me, was putting us back in an environment where we felt like we had community again. And it wasn't scripted. It was natural, which is what I think was the nicest. I just remember like the very first morning out in Truscott, going on the first helicopter ride and smelling the helicopter fuel. And as soon as that thing lifted off, just kind of the lift of the aircraft. And then as soon as we turned and the wind kind of hit you in the face, like it reminded you of being like back out with the folks. And then behind me, I've got, you know, another retired special forces guy that had been, you know, injured. And we're just kind of like sitting there like, man, this feels good. And then you're engaged in something and having some fun and building that community again. And I think that's where you fill a void that is hard to fill after. And that's what I really like about what we do.
Yeah.
Out at, you know, Big Country Veterans.
I think you hit it on the head, man. It's just kind of highlighting the senses that you had in the field, you know, again, and being in the community that everyone understands that, you know, in the same room. And, you know, I want to call Mike out here, and I love being on this podcast because I've heard things about you, man, today that I never knew, which is really awesome. But also, like, his calling in the military, he's still having that now. What I mean by that is he's going out, finding these guys and bringing them in and still taking care of them. Might not be a physical wound, even though we are starting to kind of get into that, too, a little bit as far as what we're doing with Big Country Veterans, you know. We're really listening and finding what's helping them. And I think both of us having a medical background, it's really important to us to make sure what we're doing is actually meaningful.
So you've mentioned that a couple of times that you're trying to expand just beyond the hunt. And so what do you mean past that? Like you said, we're trying to get into the physical realm.
We just started as the hunt boat, as, you know, veterans like Mike and really everyone that's part of the BCV family, like we would call it now, started kind of coming in and sharing some of the challenges that they have. You know, you kind of started hearing some similar themes coming over again. For one, like, hey, this is life-changing for me, but I went home and I had a hard time telling my spouse, you know, about what happened. I was like, well, why don't we do a couples retreat? Why don't you bring her out here and just have that same experience and see just what happens? And that's what led into our couples retreat program that we do now. I'll let Mike kind of maybe speak on behalf of the service dog, but the other one being the Rally Point program. Little short story back, like when this event started, it was actually held by another organization. We were just volunteering at the time. And then 2019 came around and that organization decided, hey, you know, this really, we don't want to do this anymore. Looked at, you know, myself, the Daniel family, a lot of key individuals that were volunteering, you know, Cedar Ridge being one of those, Redneck Culinary Academy, you want to put them out, and even Shepherd Air Force Base. And we all kind of rallied together and said, man, there's something special here. We're going to continue this. And that's actually the birth of Big Country Veterans. That's what it started as. And we had like a month to pull this event off, like with nothing.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure, right? And so we looked at each other, and one of the veterans that had gone through the program prior, he's like, man, y'all just put it together, and I'll make sure the right people are here, that they're going to get an impact just being in the moment. And that's really, to me, what started what we are, is finding the right individuals. Like Mike mentioned, like Eric, you know, Eric becoming part of that, finding the next guy. Now they're on this mission just to find, you know, their brothers and sisters out there that served with. And to me, like the warriors, you know, that experience that and bringing them in and folding them in. So then we started listening to them. That's when, you know, started standing up. And I tell that story because in the past, they were doing like hunting, fishing, things like raffling them off to help raise funds. It's like a fundraiser part of the event. And when we took it over, you know, I always noticed like at that moment, you kind of lost the connection. Like it became very transactional, and the veterans and the sponsors and everyone kind of just separated. It's like, these guys are donating this. Like, why don't we just give it right back to them? And so that's what birthed what's now our Rally Point program, where we're having moments in time of hunting, fishing, outdoor adventure trips, or you're looking into just families being a part of that. You know, it doesn't have to be that anymore. Just something with a sensory aspect to it, but also just that moment in time you can remember, and always looking forward to that next one, because like when things went south, you knew where the rally point was. And it was actually coined by one of our veterans that helped take that over. And so I think to us, it's listening to them and hearing what is going to be meaningful and impactful, and it's something we can create. Let's do it. If it's a partnership we need to create or make connections to do that, and that's a lot with the medical side of what we're doing now. We are terming it the Optimal Performance Program as of right now, but it's really looking at our veterans from a physical side of things, and if there's something we can do to help them as they age, either deal with the pain that they've had, resolve it if possible, or just kind of reset them physically. A lot of them just having the tools to do that, they have the motivation. It's not that most of the time. It's just kind of having the tools, education, that part of it. And that's where we're coming, as a helicopter hog hunt, doing what we do now, as we started, it's just, there's layers to this onion that we're, really excited to start sharing with everybody.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the sky's the limit, like you said. Yeah. I mean, you doesn't have to just stop at a helicopter hog hunt.
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of creating those continued moments in time. And really the service dog program, I'm going to let Mike speak on that because he was the proponent of it that helped stood that up. And that's just an incredible program we have now.
Yes.
Yeah. I had joined the board after 2 years of volunteering, and we wanted to do more. We didn't want to be a single touch point, and that's just what the hog hunt could have been.
Right.
So as we were building these other programs, we got to conversating about what else can we do. And I had been the recipient of a service dog years ago, and the dog changed my life. And unfortunately, I had to put him down a couple weeks ago from cancer. So, but I told him, I'm like, my opinion, if you want to make an impact, something that can help someone every day, we should do service dogs. So we partnered with a great trainer up in Ohio, and she, evaluates the veterans to determine what their needs are, and then she trains a dog to support their needs, and they have that resource at their side for the rest of their lives. However that long that is. And I think it's, we've, at this point, we've only placed 2 dogs. Obviously we had to get, the training takes a while, but we've got 3 of them being trained, and we think May is going to be the next, delivery of those 3 dogs. But just to watch that transformation and how they kind of partner with each other and, connect each other and what they do for each other, I think it's just amazing. So
like you said that they vet these people, like how do they determine like what they need? Like what could a dog,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So great question, right? A lot of times, we get into that emotional support piece or like the PTSD dog.
Yeah.
That's not really what we're doing. We're focusing on what exact issues do you have? And I'll just use myself as an example because I don't care. But so like I've got, I have TBI and I've got vestibular damage. So I actually have bad balance.
Yeah.
My neurologist tells me that you're still young enough, which I kind of laugh about. You can catch yourself, but at some point you're going to fall, right?
Perfect.
And when you fall, the older you get, it's going to be harder to get up. So my dog was trained, one, to help me balance.
Okay.
I can't walk between 2 people. So like I'll bounce off of you. I have to be on the outside. It's just a weird, I don't know, whatever my surroundings are.
I met someone just like this the other day.
Yeah.
That had a service dog that would warn him when he was fixing to fall. And then if he was going to fall, the dog would help. To help him. So just the other day, this is nuts.
And that's what he did. He knew steady, and he would brace himself. And I remember the first time I fell, I'm like fucking around in the kitchen, and it was more of a slip and fall. And I fall back and I hit the ground, and he jumps up like, "What the fuck is going on?" And I'm like, "Do your job, dog." And I was like, "Get over here and help my fat ass get up." But just so. We stay out of that 100%. We connect the veteran with our trainer.
Yeah.
We don't want to know any of their information, and we let them have that conversation. Yeah. What we hope to weed out are those individuals we were talking about earlier that are looking for a dog or an emotional support. We're not doing emotional support. We need to provide a need. So our trainer walks them through that on what do you struggle with? What do you have problems with? I laugh at this, but we've got one of my best buddies, love him to death. He's a double amputee, and we wanted to give him a dog. And I reached out to him and I was like, "Hey, we can train this dog to get your legs for you." Right. Like, and he's like, "I'm just not ready. I'm at a point in my life where I'm, still doing some stuff and I'm not quite where I want to have a dog yet." But being able to like offer these guys something that, will help them on a daily basis is to me extremely rewarding. So once she identifies that need, she starts to train the dog. And then once the dog is ready, they'll fly up to Ohio. They'll spend a week or 2 with her, and they'll learn all the rules and regulations of having a service animal, what they can and can't do, all the commands, work with the dog, go out in public, learn everything they know about the dog, and then they go home. And they go from there. We don't ever get involved with what did you train that dog to do, but because actually the law states you can only ask, is the dog trained to provide a service? Right. That's it.
What you're a bullshit type of guy.
Yeah.
I've tell that, and I like that because I like people like that. I have a real issue with these service dogs and these freaking people you see walking around with a service dog that
100%.
is not a service dog at all.
Correct. Fucking pisses me off.
Bingo! I just wanted to get that. That's what I wanted to know too, because I knew I couldn't be the only person that bothers.
Look, I got friends that go online and download the little certificate to make an emotional support dog so they could get a fucking apartment because the apartment had a no pet policy.
Oh.
So now that you have an emotional support dog, you fall under ADA. And I think that's absolute complete bullshit. If the dog doesn't provide a legitimate service, and there's a huge difference between a service animal and a dog that just has a certificate, just in the way that everywhere I would take my dog, people would comment, wow, that dog is so well trained. It's supposed to be.
Right.
It's a service animal. It's not supposed to be barking at people. It's not supposed to be growling at people. It's not supposed to be running in circles. They don't eat human food. So when it goes into a restaurant, it doesn't sniff the tables because it has no fucking idea what those smells are.
Right.
It goes in, it sits down. Most people will tell me, I didn't even know there was a dog here. Those are service dogs. Those are what we don't do emotional support. They're not PTSD dogs. Is PTSD an issue? Absolutely. Do I also think it's a huge crutch? Absolutely. I think it's easy to PTSD. I was in the military. I've got PTSD now, and people use it as an excuse to kind of like the veteran card. Sometimes it's unfortunate that people take advantage, and the people that really need shit don't get it. So
you need to run for office.
I'm just going to be after this happy to keep my job.
You need to run for office, but because everything you said is exactly how most people feel. I know I have an acquaintance. His wife's got a service dog. She's 38 years old, smoke show ex model, because she needs a service dog so she can fly with this dog. And her problem is it reminds her to take her medicine in the morning.
Yeah.
Set an alarm.
How many fucking people in the world take medicine? I do. I ain't got my fucking dog going, take some medicine,
Yep.
If you can't take, how are you going to remember to feed the fucking dog? You can't remember to get your medicine.
Yeah.
But that's the deal. Because when I see somebody, like I see soldiers with a service dog, I know damn well that's a service dog.
Yep.
But I see all these other people walking around with these freaking dogs, little dogs, all kinds of, and you're like, that ain't a damn service dog. That's a spoiled ass pet that you can't leave at home.
When you can buy a service dog jacket and certificate online, it muddies the program, unfortunately. And I think some of our airlines are starting to realize that. I was flying with my dog, and I walked up to the counter, and the agent, and I'm going to, big shout out to American Airlines. She was like, what's your disability? And I was like, ma'am, you can't ask me that. You can only ask me if this dog provides a service. And she got this big shit-eating grin on her face, and she's like, that's how I know it's a real dog, because people that have emotional support dogs don't even know that answer.
Right.
I'm like, she's like, what can we, totally took care of us, made sure, everything was good to go. But yeah, you see them yappy dogs running around. They're not trained animals.
Yeah.
And I think it waters down the real program.
We separate, hopefully ourselves at that point, is this is a huge asset. As an organization that we're providing.
Yep.
And we want to make sure it is what they need. The motto or coin, for this program is like there when it matters most. Like what could we create that no matter if anyone else is around, they could still have something touching, at that time. And what really sold me on this, because I obviously never had a service dog, was when we delivered our first one. We were in the hotel room later that evening because at that time they were using the hotel to kind of help with the bonding experience with the veteran, just individually. So I went up there with them, and for one, like vest off, this dog just became a dog again. But the whole day it's like working right, and then vest off, dog. I was like, man, that's just the coolest thing. You just see that in essence. So it kind of lets you know the level of training that dog had.
Yeah.
But then also we were sitting there talking, and I started looking through my email. I was like realizing how far behind I was with certain things and kind of getting stressed. And all of a sudden, the next thing I know, this dog, paws or like just come up and put pressure on my legs, like just sit on there. And this dog had been kind of standoffish from me the whole day just because I've taken pictures and kind of and that dog just came over there and did that and kind of sat there for a minute and then walked back in the kennel. And the veteran goes, "Hey man, you stressed?" I was like, "Yeah, a little bit." He goes, "I was watching." Her name's Zeta. I was watching Zeta, and this whole time she's just staring at you through that. And the second you started looking at your phone, she just went over there
That's
and I was
crazy.
like, man, I'm so like the moment that happened, I was like,
Yeah.
we're doing this. Like, cause that two things, like maybe I need to work on my stress level because I run in that like most of the day, but then
Yeah.
also like for them to be able to feel that, like to just notice that in a room.
What do
and to
they
be
do?
able
Do
to-
they pick up on like a cortisol level increase or?
I don't know. I don't know
Pheromones?
if there's a huge science like behind it besides just the sixth sense of the animal that it has. Like there's probably all the BS of like not everything in the world and having that just connection right there.
Yeah.
Like they're so in tune to their environment, their situation that they just knew, like just sense that increase in energy and tension in the room. And then they go over there and just put pressure and, being a PT, like pressure points, things like that. When we did that with people, it just resolved that, kind of help with hormone levels, different things like that. There's a lot of science behind that part of it, right? That it was just incredible to see. And that's when it sold me. I was like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
But we're doing it right. To my
The
point,
cancer
when we did-
dogs are amazing too.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been around hunting dogs my entire life, and a Labrador Retriever is one of the smartest dogs, and they've got great noses. And it's amazing what you can teach a dog to do. And then you'll see some shit dog someone has. A dog, it can be, there's some dumbass dogs out there, and we hunt a lot of people's clients that have some dumbass dogs, but there are some very bright dogs and what
Yep.
they can do. And a true service animal is one of the greatest gifts in the world.
Yep. They're
But
amazing.
the people that's using them for fee, it just doesn't do. To the big country veterans hunt, people are going to ask, do y'all need any more volunteers, or y'all volunteered up? Because a lot of times you can get volunteers you really don't need. A lot of people want to volunteer, but they don't want to do nothing. They want to volunteer to be the fun job.
Yeah.
You know, nobody wants to clean out the porta potties.
Sure.
Right.
You know,
That's
so
what I have to do.
so there you go. See,
Well, that job's already taken,
you got
so you're good.
the docs doing it. But do y'all if someone wants to reach out, I'm sure y'all will take any kind of financial donations.
Absolutely. 100%.
But volunteer actual time and stuff, y'all have everything pretty much covered, because that's a big event y'all do. I mean, it's big.
It is. Answer in two ways. We're probably volunteered out as of right now as far as needed, but don't hesitate to reach out and connect with us, because ours is a month away, so we've gotten it kind of locked in at this point, right? But also, one of the things we're expanding out is our veterans that have served and been a part of the program coming back and now volunteering. And so we're seeing a larger and larger group of those like coming back and serving. It's kind of like, go, I wouldn't say retrieve, like going somewhere and now you come back and serve. So that's a big part of, I think, what that weekend's about. And then also staying connected with like Shepherd Air Force Base and those guys coming out and being a part of it. And then I think what's unique about it is, as a sponsor, like if you provide financial funding for it and a sponsor out there, you get to be a part of it the entire weekend. Like you're there, you're on the ground with it, you're flying, with the veterans that you're help serving and being a part of it, and you get to see those changes that happen. Like you literally get to see them the moment they arrive and get to shake their hand and visit with them and make that connection, and then get to see them leave and then also continue to be a part of it. A lot of our sponsors come back every single year, and now they're making connections outside of the event. They're meeting up with their families. They're doing like who does that? Like we don't even hear probably half of what actually happens outside of the hunt. It's just that connection that weekend.
It's a great thing. What's the website? Do you have a website?
Yes, bigcountryveterans.org.
Bigcountryveterans.org. And the hunt's the last weekend in April.
Correct.
And it's at Truscott, Texas.
Yes, sir.
And thank you to, I can't even think of who I'm thinking of now.
Colton Daniel, the Daniel family. Yes.
Jerry
Jerry Bob.
God almighty.
Yeah, Jerry Bob and Eugenie Daniel. Definitely want to give them
Jerry
a shout
Bob
out.
and Eugenie for setting their ranch up and setting
Yes.
us up. And they're basically Truscott, Texas, the Daniels.
They
family.
are, and they open, and they kind of mentioned this, like they open their home up for everyone that weekend, and for someone to do that, like that, genuinely, is something that we're extremely grateful for, but also just a testament to their family and what they do.
And all the helicopter services that fly, I don't know how many different ones are doing that.
So Cedar Ridge Aviation is
The only one that's doing
providing
it?
their- Yes,
And Dustin and Garrett at
Dustin
Cedar
and
Ridge.
Yes,
That we do a lot
of
of stuff with. They do the things with our Gold Star hunt. Good guys. Known them a long time. Good friends of ours. We always appreciate them
That's
too.
the hard part. Like when we do that Gold Star hunt, is like I just don't know how much these people want to share. So that's always like the tough part for me whenever they're out here, because obviously they've been through a terrible tragedy in their family, and you want to talk to them, but at the same time you don't want to ask too much, or so that's always like my
Well, I think you
hang-up.
just create genuine moments.
Right.
It'll happen. Like if it's supposed to be, like in my opinion, I think, Mike can obviously speak on that more, but for them to open up to you, and I struggled with this at the beginning, like being a civilian, I was like, man, how am I going to relate? And what was really great is when I stopped trying, that's when it happened. It just became you. You're just genuine.
We have a mother and her little boy come out hunted a second time. They dove hunted and they come and goose hunted this year with us for a couple times. His mom reaches out to me and Michelle a lot. Good lady. But we do more than just the Gold Star kids now. We're having or from veterans. We've reached out to now doing first responders because knock on wood, there's not a lot of people that are Gold Star families in the military right now because we haven't had a lot of conflicts.
Right.
And I hope it stays that way.
Same.
But we're dealing with a lot of firemen and a lot of policemen. A lot of policemen right now.
Great.
I think we got 4 kids coming this year whose dads all got killed in the line of duty, shot. And so, that's going to be this year's crop of kids. But we've had to go over to that more than just the military. But hats off to Cedar Ridge.
Yes,
I mean, they do
they
do a lot of good things for a lot of good people.
They do.
And y'all both have been incredible stories.
Appreciate it.
And do it.
Well, hold on. I want to go into the TBI real quick because we skipped over the Ibogaine. Have you seen any of that?
We have. So we've actually had some folks that have tried it. I'd say it's about 50-50 right now on.
So it's not like Rick Perry saying with a 95% or 100% success rate.
Like
I can't speak on behalf of it. I don't think we've had enough direct,
But how much
correlation
was
with
the
it and
success rate, he said?
I like basically everybody that tries it gets over whatever ailment they have.
If you're at 50-50, I think you'd be hitting a home run.
Yeah.
I think for us, TBI obviously is a direct result of the combat, for a lot of individuals that come back. And so through that program, like I call it Optimal Performance Program we're actually partnering with Parker University, which has a program that they just stood up called the Invicta Project, where they're working on TBIs for combat veterans and first responders that have had that issue. And so they come about it very holistically, though. That's what I like about it. So physiologically, neurology, integrated healthcare, all those things. It's not like one answer to it because it's a multi-complex issue. And so being able to tie ourselves with organizations that are doing those kind of things, that's what's really important to us because it's an issue within this community for sure.
Yeah.
And that's just repetitive concussions, basically, TBI?
It could be one.
It can be?
It can. I mean, if you get one big enough.
Yeah.
But however, most of the time it's, over continuous those micro traumas throughout your career, blasts banging your head. I mean, helmets is new. We didn't wear helmets. Like nobody wore helmets. Like that was the cool kids never wore helmets. Now we should have worn helmets, but we know more on it. But I think for us, like the hallucinogen approach, I don't know that there's enough hard evidence and examples that's we have personal experience with some of our close friends that have done it. And it has not been what I would consider something that would get me off the couch to go pursue that conversation yet. So we're watching it.
Right.
I don't know that we have an opinion on it yet, other than I want to kind of see where it goes. I'm open to anything that will help veterans, but at the same time, I wanted to help veterans.
Yeah. Right.
And we haven't necessarily
Well, I think
seen that.
like why the backgrounds that we had, why did all this kind of formulate to what we're doing now, with big country veterans and having just that medical background on both of our sides, we're able to kind of vet some of these out and make sure it's, appropriate as we do that and go through that line before we recommend it, to the veteran population that we serve. To answer your question more directly, like the TBIs that they receive is different than like a football player, or it's like a blunt force trauma. It's the blast wave percussions primarily, and it creates a shearing effect between the gray and white matter in the brain. So it literally shears those connections, and they're finding that to be even more damaging than the blunt force trauma these days. And it can be cumulative, it can be one time, but it's damaging. But the cool part about it that they're finding out is like neuroplasticity. I don't know if you've heard that word, but it's like creating new neural pathways.
Yeah.
And but if you doing it right, going in these abilities to work on vestibular training, different things like that to help with maybe their balance or different things that creates these new neural pathways. It's been so interesting to me.
It's crazy because neurological surgery and stuff is still in its infancy.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking, 50 years maybe?
Mm-hmm. When I just got back from Vegas, Parker University put on a seminar out there, and they had some of the top minds in the world, and that's still, of topic, like what's actually happening within the brain right now. We're seeing some of these things and markers that are showing us why some of this is happening, but it's still a mystery, in some ways. So.
Well, I saw Brett Favre was talking, and obviously, he's got Alzheimer's now and everything. He had a neurologist tell him
He's got Alzheimer's?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They asked him, how many concussions did you had? And he said, well, I got knocked out like 3 or 4 times. And he's like, try every time your ears rang.
Yeah.
Is a traumatic brain injury. And when you think of it that way, I mean, that's all the way down. I had my bell rung as a football player and just in high school.
100%.
right? So it's like, and now you factor in a 30-year military career and all the gunshots and the explosions that you were around. I mean, there's no telling what you've done to your brain.
Well, that's what I agree with. Mike with PTSD gets like this umbrella term versus like, hey, put yourself in their body for a second.
Yeah.
And just live in it. And then kind of see mentally how to, go through your day when you're feeling that. So
Or
that's
just that shockwave going through your entire body.
Yeah.
Not just forget about the head. Like, what's that shockwave doing to your organs over time?
Well, and that's what we're so passionate about, trying to find things that help, I wouldn't say hit a reset, but like help advance you physically to the point, because then that's when I think you can see mentally how you are, because I think everybody's like had back pain and things like, especially like issues like that where it's chronic, man, mentally that just wears on you. Wears on you.
Best thing come out of the NFL is going to be what they end up finding on concussions. They'll do more to fix that than anybody, because it's a private company and they got all their marbles rely on them guys playing football.
Yep.
And that's $1 trillion business now. And they're going to put a lot of money into it to try to fix all that stuff to the best of their knowledge that they can do.
Hope it works.
And that could have a filter down effect just into the military and just
That's what I'm saying.
absolutely.
It's going to turn into, but that's usually what happens when somebody somewhere is going to get a breakthrough. But I don't think it's going to be the government. I think the NFL is going to be the biggest breakthroughs on head injuries because of that. How many surgeries do we have because of them that's been, that they've changed? The Achilles operation, I've blown out both my Achilles. Now the surgery is a whole lot better than what I had 10 and 15 years ago. And it's private medicine.
Oh, the private sector is going to push it. I mean, Elon's a perfect example, just in the, race to space, right, type situation.
What's funny is when you see those politicians like AOC, he's a con artist that's never accomplished anything. The man's the richest guy in the world, and you're calling him a con artist.
Yep.
And I'm not saying you can't be a con artist to make some money, but the guy is different level of intelligence,
Right?
And she's calling him a con artist. Just crazy.
Are you going to let him put Starlink in your head?
No, but I've got Starlink in this office right now. I wouldn't put.
You're not going to ping off of the radio towers.
There is
and
no
have
way in hell
information downloaded at the blink of an eye.
No, and I don't think anybody else is going to do that either.
They got people signed up.
People are idiots. There is no way.
I think they've already done one.
Well,
I think they've already done this.
They found an idiot. Anybody that would put any kind of chip or anything in you. We're carrying around a tracking device, a phone, everywhere we go.
Yep.
So all this TikTok bullshit they's worried about and everything, if you got an Apple phone, everything that you do, everybody knows. But to implant something in you is wrong. I've seen the people that's got the chips now where they can use their bank card and stuff, and I just don't.
Yeah, that's dumb, because all they got to do is be like, nope, you tweeted something that we don't agree with, so you're not buying that milk and bread today. Yeah, Starlink chip, Elon Musk's Neuralink is what it's called.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good.
The guy's a bright guy, but I'm not doing any of that shit at all. There's no possible way.
He did it last January. In the first patient, human.
I'm not a space nerdy type guy, science fiction type guy. But if I remember right, Empire Strikes Back or one of the most Star Wars movies, and they replace Luke's arm or whatever they do, they got some kind of chip that goes all your medical. You just stick your hand out and it shows it all or some shit. I'm thinking we're going down that same path right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't trust them. As a college professor, before we got here, I got a question for you. Have you noticed a different? How long have you been teaching now?
5 years.
Kids getting worse?
No, kids are amazing.
Parents are getting worse.
I don't deal with the parents.
Well, I
that's
just
what's great
meant-
about
Yeah,
college.
yes.
No. I just meant that kids don't know anything. I've argued this with Jeff. Kids are going to rise to the level of their parenting.
Yeah, I will tell you, I have had a phenomenal experience on campus.
And you're at a different type of college though, because you're at a private school.
So it is private. We do have a lot of transfers that come in from all across the country, and I will tell you that I'm blessed to be around. I was a little unsure going into it, and a lot of my friends are like, man, I don't know if you're going to survive that environment. They're great. Every class I've taught, every student has been amazing.
Well, you live in the only true big city in Texas that's a Texas town, because Fort Worth is Texas.
Yes.
I've said that 1,000 times. Austin is San Francisco.
Yep.
Dallas is Los Angeles. Houston is Bangladesh or some shit.
Yep.
But
Fort
Fort Worth
is
is
where
amazing.
It's at. Yep.
Felt safe when we went out to dinner that night. Did you ever feel unsafe?
Yes.
You did?
One time I was in the parking. I parked in the parking garage, and there was a bum with a trash pushing a shopping cart.
You take jujitsu twice a week. He's gonna whip your ass.
I mean, I was ready, but I was a
I'm
little
embarrassed.
nervous.
As your dad, I'm
I was
embarrassed.
going to choke the fuck out of him with his blanket that he had thrown over him.
Bums
looking
don't
for
go-
a burger,
yeah,
man.
Bums don't jump. Yeah, bums don't jump on nobody.
You
Fort
don't know
Worth,
that?
I feel safe in Fort
I
Worth.
love Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Now,
I didn't
there's
say
some
that I would-
neighborhoods I don't.
Hold on, I want to retract. I wasn't nervous, but I was aware.
Oh, you should be aware.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I mean,
common sense.
I wasn't nervous, no, but I was aware that if he came at me, that blanket was going to be a strangling device.
Downtown Fort Worth is very safe.
Love it.
And there's not a lot of big cities. I don't go to Dallas and feel safe like that on
Oh,
the
no.
streets. But in Fort Worth, I feel safe. It's good people. Sundance Square, that whole area.
love it.
Stockyards. When Stockyards, I didn't
That's
feel
the
unsafe
Stockyards,
at all.
right? They've
Yeah.
done a really good job in the stockyards.
Yep.
Big chicks need to start wearing more clothes. I will say that, though. But other than that, yes. But I am a big fan of Fort Worth as a good town.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. What were you like in high school? Because you said you were kind of this rebellious guy when you got to the military. Were you always just kind of at the head of your class?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't call me at the head of the class. I was probably at the bottom of the class.
Really?
I hated academics.
Yeah.
If somebody would have asked me in high school, hey, will you ever teach college? I'd probably laugh. I mean, that just wasn't my.
Right.
I went to high school to play football
Oh.
and run track. That was it. I was a loner.
Did you go to high school in Texas?
I did Lavernia High
Yeah,
School.
okay, you used Lavernia. Where was you at in Texas?
Sundown.
Okay, that's
it.
it. I know exactly where that is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a lot.
There's not. My dad managed a big ranch out there. If you know where it's at.
And where you
Mountain
live in the
Ranch.
Metroplex now?
Well, I live in Aledo.
Well, that's right. Place
Yes,
with
it's
trees.
becoming.
You
yeah,
got
the
trees now
Metroplex.
where you're at.
Man, that was
many.
the weirdest thing. Yeah, I felt so like claustrophobic. Like honestly, like I couldn't see 30 miles, and I was like, man, what is this place?
I get that way when I go up north, like when I can't see. Like then you get the ocean, you can see a long way. It's like, phew, thank God. I don't like being around the trees either.
Yeah.
But Sundown is not
It's
rough oil
it's
field
flat.
town.
It is. I loved it.
Is it
Great
dying?
people. What's that?
Is it dying?
It's just kind of staying static.
Well,
you know?
our little town's dying.
Yeah.
All these towns out here are dying.
We got blessed. I mean, it's a great town. My mom was an educator there for almost 40 years. My dad was the foreman of the Mount Ranch out there. So I kind of had a little bit of a unique experience, but the school and people were just incredible, for a small town, because you get a lot of oil field money. And so we get experiences that people out there typically wouldn't get, just being part of the school.
Dr. Mike grew up about 10 years later than he should have. You should have grown up in the Dazed and Confused days around the Austin area.
I know.
It would have been a good time. See,
know.
I was about 5 years behind that.
Yeah.
But what a time to grow up.
I know. I would have been all about that.
Yeah. And even Austin and San Antonio then wasn't bad.
It wasn't. I hate going. I mean, I won't move back to San Antonio.
Yeah.
Like it's too chaotic.
Oh, it's huge now.
Yeah. I remember San Antonio and Austin. It was like you drove between the two. Now it's like it's just one big run on dot of crap.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. No, I'm good. I love Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Love Texas, but I love Fort Worth.
Fort Worth is the only big city in Texas I would live in.
Yeah, and it still has that small town feel. The people are great. Community's great. Yeah, I love Fort Worth.
Did you go before you signed on with the military? Did you go to the different branches to see which way you wanted to go, or is it just like you went into the first one and they signed you up?
So, the Navy and the Marine Corps are right next to each other.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to join the Army. No offense to my Army brethren, but when I was growing up, a couple of the Army folks from the local Army bases would come to the high school to pick up on our fellow classmates, and we'd beat them up periodically. So I was like, I'm not joining the Army. I didn't want to join the Air Force because I figured I'd just get stuck in San Antonio.
Yeah.
So that left the Navy and the Marine Corps. I love my Marine brethren, but that haircut, sorry, brothers, I couldn't do it. It's like, it's going to be the Navy. Like it's by the ocean, I figured worst case scenario, I'll always be by the water somewhere.
Yeah.
So I didn't talk to anybody but the Navy and thought about the others, but didn't act on them.
Well, what's crazy now is when you signed up, there wasn't a whole lot of information out there. Like you can Google it now and see, the differences and how different career paths you can take in each branch. Like when you signed up, you just kind of taking the recruiter's word at.
Oh yeah. He handed me a little postcard. It's like, here's the pay scale system. And I'm like, oh, I could go from E1 to this O14. He's like, yep. Overnight. I'm like, you got it. Man, sign me up today. I'll be a captain in no time.
Yeah. By summertime, my ass owning this place.
Yeah. That shit was bullshit. Yeah. So yeah, but it ended good for me. So I can't complain.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
I was reading a deal. I've got a thing about Elvis I'm doing on a different podcast today, but Elvis, when he signed up in the Army and he went to the Army and they tried to do the public sector or whatever it was, where he would go and do like USO type deals and sing for him and stuff. But they didn't do it because he didn't want to give up it, because the Army would get all his money.
Right.
All of his, anything he did, if they would have filmed it and sold it, it would have been all the government money. So they chose to just be in regular service stuff. But he went from an E1 to an E5 in like a year. And I thought, boy, during war times, things, you sure could get promoted pretty freaking fast.
Yeah. Not the case for me here.
No,
Yeah.
no, but he went from an E1 to an E5 in a year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And that's what everybody was doing.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be a distraction having him in your
Oh
unit.
my goodness, could you imagine?
Oh, yeah.
Terrible.
Woo.
Listen, guys, we appreciate y'all coming out here. It's an amazing thing that you guys put on every year, and it's very cool to hear that you guys are expanding. You know, going beyond the helicopter hog hunt and going into service dogs and couples retreats. I can't imagine how the couples retreats have saved a lot of people and marriages. So you guys keep rocking and rolling. It's been a pleasure talking to you
Yep.
guys.
Thank you. God bless you. I appreciate what y'all done.
Bless
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. Watch for deer.
That was it.